Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing absolutely well. Welcome back to a new chapter. This is going to be the fifth chapter for our principles of flight, which is high lift devices. So, what are high lift devices? High lift devices are basically, so let's say this is your airfoil. So, high lift devices, you have it on your leading edge, which is over here, and on trailing edge, which increase your camber and also help you reduce your takeoff and landing distances. So, we are gonna discuss two types of high lift devices. The first one is gonna be flaps. All right. So if this is my aerofoil, all right, so the high lift devices on the trailing edge are called flaps, and on the leading edge are called slats. All right. So as you can see, this here, I'm sure you have seen it when you are traveling by an airliner. This is what you call flaps, and then over here on the leading edge, this one you see is called slats. I hope it makes sense. So I'll explain how this actually works, slats. So you see there's some space over here. So what happens is that there's some air that passes through here. So let's say I've cut the wing from here like this, and you're gonna see it from the side. So this is the aerofoil shape, and then this is somewhat how you have your slat. Alright, so there's some space over here. Can you see? So what happens is that air travels from here, and it so you see this is the normal airflow anyway. So there's some air that's traveling from here and it's adding momentum, or let's say high energy into this field. So it's basically re-energizing the boundary layer. It's basically adding energy to the boundary layer so it does not separate easily. And there's something somewhat similar that happens with flaps over here. So these are my flaps, sorry. So if these are my flaps, they do somewhat the same thing because of APG, adverse pressure gradient, this flow becomes weaker. So somewhat flaps are doing the same thing and helping you increase the boundary layer energy. Alright, so yeah, so basically what you're doing with your high lift devices is you're increasing your coefficient of lift, which is CL. But as you remember, whenever you're generating lift, you're also going to generate drag, which is proportional, and also drag is always going to be there. Alright, so let's discuss how flaps actually help you and how they give you different advantages. So the first being, as they create more lift, so your landing and takeoff speeds are reduced, and also your distances are reduced. So let's say this is your lift formula, half rho v square cl s. All right, so instead of increasing this, the flaps are increasing this, so indirectly they are increasing your lift, and then you can get airborne earlier. And also, let's say you have runway limitations. Let's say you have a shorter runway, so with flaps you can get airborne early. And yeah, and also since you're creating drag, you can your angle of descent can be steeper. So what is angle of descent? I'll draw it for you. So let's say this is my aircraft. So without flaps, it's gonna descend like this in this way. Let's say this is the ground, but with flaps I can descend like this. So the advantage is without increasing my speed I can get a steeper angle of descent. So let's say if my runway is over here and I don't want to overshoot it, so with the help of flaps I can deploy my flaps, which will increase my drag, and with that help I can, yeah, make it to the runway. So I want to show you an example of how it works with flaps. So I'll just draw it over here. So let's say this is my aircraft. All right, it's on the ground. This is the ground. This is my aircraft. All right. So the thing is with flaps, you're gonna get. So this is my takeoff run. All right. And with flaps, I'm gonna get airborne earlier. All right. And unless say I don't have flaps, so I'm gonna I'm gonna take some time to be airborne. I'm gonna need more ground roll, but my angle at which I'm climbing is gonna be steeper and also better. This is because even though you're creating, even though you're with flaps here, this is with flaps, and this is without. So this basically this, even though you're generating lift, but you're generating a lot of induced drag. So that's the reason. Wait, I'll just write it down here. So that's the reason why your angle of climb is steeper over here. In case of no, in case when you don't use flaps. So let's go ahead and we are gonna study types of flaps. All right. So the first one is gonna be plain flap. This is the easiest and most basic flap. Easiest and basic plus basic. There's not much to remember. So you see this is the aerofoil. There's just some section that has come down like this. Alright, I hope it makes sense. and yeah, it gives a good increase in lift, but also there's some drag. Because of this, there's going to be parasite drag. All right, somewhat. And then we have the split flap. So also, yeah, this is going to be the second flap. So this is the flap with highest drag. So yeah, it gives you good increase in lift, but also it's the flap with the highest drag. So you can see that there's a lower surface that splits and comes down like this. That's how you identify it. Then you have slotted flap. So this area between your flap and your airfoil is called a slot. So as I told you, air enters from here and re-energizes the boundary layer, and therefore delaying separation. Oh, this is a slotted flap. And then yeah, you don't need to study this. This is going to be third, and this is the fourth one. Yeah, Fowler flap. So in case of Fowler flap, what happens is it first moves rear, and then it creates a slot. So it's basically a better version of the slotted flap because it's increasing your camber, and it's also giving you that slot that's helping you re-energize the boundary layer. So of course this is going to be the flap with the highest lift increase in CL. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna let's compare the different CL. Let's draw a graph over here. Uh, yeah. So let's say this is the graph for CL, and let's say this is the graph of angle of attack. All right. All right. So for as it makes sense. So this is your basic. This is gonna be your basic section with no flaps. So as you know, this is what this is stalling because you're reducing your CL is reducing, and then the next is gonna be plain flap. All right. So I'm gonna draw a dotted line. All right, and then you have somewhat the same lift, but no, a little bit more CL compared to plain. This is split flap. All right, and this one is better. So this is gonna be split. This is plain. This is no flap. All right, and after split you have slotted. Uh, all right, so with slotted, it's gonna be a bit more increase in your CL, and then again you're gonna have Fowler with the greatest increase in CL. This will be your Fowler, and this is gonna be a slotted flap. All right. Uh, all right. So let's discuss what happens when you lower your flaps. Let's say this is my aerofoil. All right, normal aerofoil, and this is my normal airflow over it. All right, so yeah, first I'll draw the chord line for this. So let's say this is the leading edge, this is the trailing edge, chord line, straight line, joining the leading and the trailing edge. All right, so this is my chord line, and then relative airflow, the airflow opposite to your flight path. So I'm gonna draw an airflow opposite to the flight path. Right, I'll just draw better. Yeah, so this is my relative airflow. Alright, so this is gonna be my angle of attack chord line and relative airflow. Now let's say that I have lowered the flaps. Alright, so yeah, so now my flaps have been lowered. This is my flaps, alright, so I've lowered it. So now again, now let's say what's the chord line in this case. So this is my gonna be my trailing edge which has come down over here, and this is my leading edge. So again, straight line. Wait, I'll draw it with blue line over here, blue color. Yeah. So again, straight line joining leading and trailing. The relative airflow is gonna be like this. Alright, and this is gonna be my angle of attack over here. So do you see my angle of attack has actually increased because of lowering the flaps? Due to this, what happens is that my stalling angle, so the angle at which my aircraft stalls and loses lift, has reduced. So instead of 16 degrees, it is going to be at a lower angle. This is because of you reduce deploying your flaps, you have increased your effective angle of attack. So this is your effective angle of attack. I hope it makes sense. So let's discuss about effect of flaps on your L by D ratio. Alright, so before that, there's something I want to specify that when I told you that split flap is the flap with the highest drag. Also, follow flap is the flap with the lowest one. Alright, I forgot this simple thing. Yeah, it's the one with the lowest drag and also the highest lift. Alright, just a small note I want you guys to make. Alright, let's go. Yeah. So basically, what is L by D ratio? As I've told you before, it's the ratio between your lift and the drag you're producing. Alright, so of course, when you're generating lift, you also want to generate drag. So the thing with flaps is when you, let's say this is the L by D, when you deploy your flaps, your L by D is gonna, so your lift is gonna increase. The issue is your drag is gonna increase more than your lift. So what basically happening is that your L by D ratio is reducing due to your flaps. Alright, so there's this topic that's kind of important and a bit confusing. So just pay attention for this one. So this is CP movement with flaps. So as you all know that CP is basically where your lift is acting. Alright, it's a point on your aerofoil where lift is supposed to act. So let's say this is my aerofoil. Alright, and now I've deployed my flaps. So the increase in lift is due to this rearward portion, right? So what happens is if this is my CP, just ignore the flap here. So if this was my CP before, let's say this is CP. So when I'm deploying my flaps, what happens? It moves rearward. So it's going to be somewhere over here, let's say. So yeah, so this has moved my CP rearward, and due to this CP moving rearward, what happens? It gives you a nose down pitching movement. So when CP moves rearward, it gives you nose down pitching movement. Alright, so let's say this is your airfoil, your flaps. So if my CP has moved forward, so basically lift is acting upward, right? So this is my CP. So now since it has moved, let's say the CG was somewhere over here, alright, and it's acting vertically downward. So basically now it's creating a nose down movement, right? If you can visualize, I hope you can. But there's one more thing. So this is the first case, alright. So the second case, there's one more case. So let's say this is your flaps. You lower it, and then also this is your elevator, alright. Let's say this is your elevator. Just imagine, okay, let's just imagine this is your entire aircraft and you have your wing over here and the elevator over here. I'm not drawing the aircraft, I'm just hoping that you visualize over here. So what happens? So when you deploy your flaps, what happens to your upwash and downwash? They increase. So basically, due to this increase, the relative airflow here becomes effective airflow. Alright. So due to this change in airflow, your angle of attack is decreasing over here. Alright. So I hope it makes sense that your lift is increasing here, your upwash and downwash is increasing here. This is increasing over here. This is changing the relative airflow to effective flow over here. This effective airflow, due to this effective airflow, your angle of attack is reducing, due to which the lift is reducing. And just imagine if this was the lift before, let's say it was, yeah, let's say this was 100 newtons. Now it's 50 newtons. All right. So due to this, can you imagine? Since it has reduced, what's happening? It's giving you nose up movement, right? So basically, let's imagine this is this line, okay? I have the wing here, the elevator here. If this is more, think of it as a seesaw. This will tend to move up, this will tend to move down, right? Normally. But now since this has reduced, alright, and this is still the same, there will be some less motion downward. So basically the nose up tendency has increased, right? Makes sense. Alright. So this was the second case for the CP movement. So the first one is here that the CP moves rearward because increase in lift is from the rearward part, and this was the second movement due to the upwash and onwash. So you must be wondering, so Ismail, you gave us two theories, which one is correct? So the thing is the movement, which is the pitch down or pitch up movement, will depend on which of these two forces is dominant. So the movement depends on whichever is dominant. Alright, I hope it makes sense. Alright, the next topic is gonna be leading edge high lift devices. So for now we have discussed all the leading all the high lift devices that are on your trailing edge somewhat over here. Now we're going to discuss the leading edge, which is the front part of your aerofoil. So there are two types. The first one is going to be the leading edge flaps, and then you're going to have leading edge slats or slots. So the first for leading edge flaps, we are going to study Kruger flaps. All right. Yeah. So the diagram you saw see below here. This is a diagram for your Kruger flaps. So one thing that you need to keep in mind that they are used on your inboard section. All right. So what's basically happening, let's say this is your wing from the top view. So the inboard section of your leading edge, these can be used. All right. And what it does, it increases your camber. So definitely it will increase your camber since it's a high lift device. And it also promotes root stall. All right. So it promotes root stall. And you might be wondering why they're used on the inboard section, because they are comparatively less efficient compared to your variable camber leading edge flap, which we'll study in some time. And the variable camber leading edge flap, they are used on your outboard section. So basically, how does this promote root stall? So okay, let's say this is your wing. All right. So if you have something more efficient outside, your angle of attack, let's say. So the main idea is basically you have Kruger flaps on your inboard and something better. We're gonna refer to variable camber leading edge flap as something better on your outboard section. So what happens for your stalling angle when you deploy your leading edge slats and slots? What happens? Your stalling angle increases. So the thing is, this is increasing it more than this compared. So basically, your root is gonna stall first, right? Compared to your tip, which is basically what you want, so you don't lose your aileron effectiveness over here. So in a way, this is how it helps in promoting root stall. So the second one, as I told you, it's gonna be the variable camber leading edge flap. I'll write it down. Variable camber leading edge flap. Alright, so I'll just draw it out for you. Let's say this is your aerofoil, and when it's retracted, it's gonna be like this, somewhat over here, and when it's deployed, it's gonna be like this. It's gonna come out like this, and it's gonna increase your camber. So I'll just, it's gonna be a bit more curved, so it gives you better increase in your lift compared to your Kruger flaps, and it has better characteristics. And yeah, so next, so this we have completed the leading edge flaps. Now let's talk about slats and slots. Alright, so yeah, as I showed it to you in the start, so this is your slats, of course, on the outboard section. And what they basically do is increase your stalling angle. We study this in stall. Your stalling angle is gonna be increased, and the main thing that they do is re-energize your boundary layer. Alright, and how do you do that? As I told you, let's say this is your slat, let's say this is your aerofoil, this is your slat. Alright, so you see this opening over here, and so it allows airflow to pass through it, and this airflow adds energy to your boundary layer and delays separation in a way. So it's basically adding your kinetic energy. This is adding kinetic energy to your boundary layer. And so the main idea is you add kinetic energy and your boundary layer is not separated till a higher angle of attack. And so there's one important topic that I want to discuss, which is going to be the sequence of operation. Alright. So I hope you remember what happens to your stalling angle when you deploy your flaps and when you deploy your slats. Alright. So over here your stalling angle reduces, and over here your stalling angle increases. So this is good and this is bad, right? So when you're deploying, the thing is you deploy this first and then you deploy this first. Alright. So what happens? So let's say your stalling angle is 16. When you deploy this, it becomes 18, and when you deploy this, it comes back to 16. And when you're retracting, you do the opposite. You I mean, when you retract this first, so it goes back to 18, and then you retract this, so it goes back to 16. I hope it makes sense. And why do we do this? To prevent stall. Yeah, that's basically something you want to avoid. So yeah, we're done with the chapter. This was a quite smaller chapter. I hope you enjoyed.